Welcome back to Rolando Estocada. My name is Rolando, and for today's episode, I'm going to be covering tomahawk and knife. Tomahawk and knife is something that I really like to work with for my own movement practice because it's just something that historically that's been done before. And as we know, Daniel Winkler's knives are absolutely spectacular and they pair really well with the Sayoc Winkler Tomahawks and any of the tomahawks that he has in inventory. One of these days, I do hope to own one of his fantastic Winkler knives. Today, I'm going to use something that, quite frankly, has some Winkler DNA. Because from what I understand, at one point, there was a Sensei James Williams and Winkler collaboration in that they both collaborated in the creation of and making of the HZ6. In fact, you can see it where, if I'm not mistaken, they're relatively rare. I don't have the Winkler Williams HZ6. What I have here is one of my favorite fixed knives, and I've done a video on before, which is the CRKT HZ6. This 6-inch blade is absolutely spectacular, and it is so good because the handle happens to be shorter than the blade. And this is important because that way, if I need to do any sort of grip switches, from here and then here and into this position here, palm assist, and into this position, I really love it. And combining the two of them, the Williams blade design with a full-size tomahawk, I think this is, in many ways, a match made in heaven. So I'm going to be moving with it, and some insights that I do want to share with you. This is going to be traditional Filipino martial arts, as traditional as it gets, as it relates to Espada y Daga. This is going to function as the Espada, and this is going to function as your traditional Daga. One thing I want you to be mindful of is that the movements from here are going to be relatively wide so that we can create some of that largo mano movement and clear the way. And I'm not just talking about clearing the way as in the person in front of me. There could be zombies around me too. So I'm going to make sure that when I do this, I'm going to clear all the way around. And I think that's one of the important functions of that back spike. It's not just cutting across with that front spike. Front spike's not going to get all the action. The front spike comes around and then, whoa, that reverse spike, boom, get all the zombies behind me and off I go. But the cool thing about the HZ6 that I really like is the fact that it has a very, very low profile. So one of the things that I really like about the HZ6, as versatile as the full size is, this can remain relatively low profile, stays close to my body, so that if I need to do any sort of close quarter work, this can come in from this angle, or even this angle. So now I can do these grip switches and remain relatively low profile so that the ocular tracking is going to be on the tomahawk, while this one is something that you never really see. So this is something that I'm happy to share with you, my movement explorations and some strategic applications. Thank you very much for letting me share. Appreciate it. I hope you enjoy. Working with a full-sized Winkler Tomahawk alongside the CRKT Hirazukuri 6 is a real study in contrast because the heavier Tomahawk is going to be required to move in a way that's relatively fluid, but the lighter Hirazukuri 6 is going to be required to be relatively steady. The Winkler is going to move in a way that's more familiar to us with the Filipino martial arts, but the HZ6 is going to require to be structured in a more Japanese swordsmanship methodology. Note that I hold it out to the side for ocular tracking, but also to remind me that this is within a melee context, so someone might come in from the side. I use the Filipino methodology to distract in the front, and then I get super structured as I come up the center line. So do make note that these are two different curriculums that are working together. So there's a lot of education for me in terms of kinesthetic feedback because I want to avoid the temptation to use them both with the same methodology. If I use the Japanese methodology, I can take away the fluidity of the tomahawk, but if I use the fluid Filipino tomahawk methodology, I will lose the strength that comes from the Hirazukuri 6. So be mindful that as I use the long tool, it's relatively fluid, but it's a heavy tool. But notice the structure of the HZ6 when I use it. It is very necessary, especially within a melee contact, that a lighter tool, especially like the HZ6, is supported by structure. So within the melee contacts, I target the coat rack and then I go off to the side. When I start to move with it, I'm always having that type of awareness. Take a look at how the tomahawk moves with relative fluidity, but then I have structure when I go inside. Fluid and then structure, fluid and then structure. So this requires you to expand and contract to stay fluid and intricate and then relatively simple once you go in. Note that I have now switched to the ice pick grip. This knife, the HZ6, has a lot of versatility as it relates to the kind of grips that it offers. So again, take a look at the fluidity as I manage the long range. Then once I get into close range, I can use my structure using the HZ6. Working within the melee contacts, what I like to do from here is to do 3 of 9 with the tomahawk and the HZ6, imagining 2 opponents on right and left. So 3 of 9 right and 3 of 9 left, so that I'm working with 2. There's a lot of versatility that is going on here, and it really informs a lot of my movement work with long and short methodology. The other thing I'm going to show you in a little bit is some of the versatility in grips of the HZ6. A lot of fluidity and a lot of structure that supports it. Take a look at this push dagger position. That's one of them. It expands my reach so that the tomahawk has 1 reach, and then the push dagger gives it a much longer reach. It is tempting to think of it as mostly long range, but actually it's also pretty good when I use the tomahawk and I come in and close for that short range, and I can come into the lower line. There's also the funnel grip to consider, but a lot of these considerations only come when that you have a much deeper understanding of the structure and fluidity of the long and short tomahawk and knife methodology. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around, stay tuned, more videos to come.